So my name is Sabah Kolay, and I'm one of the co-founders of Nuvu Studio. I'm also the Chief Creative Officer.
My name is Saeed Arida. I am the founder and Chief Excitement Officer. I never really thought I would start a school. None of us, I think the three founders here, thought we will start a school. It was completely accidental. I was really interested in education and how to improve it. I think a big part of it here is really around kind of the students taking ownership of their learning. In many ways, when the students come to us from regular schools, there is this attitude that someone else is designing the experience for me. And we want to empower the students basically to be able to think independently and to be able to think in a very creative way. Look at the world that's around you, get to explore it in very interesting ways, and also get to kind of design something that will have an impact on this world.
Creative learning is at the essence, for me, of most learning, in the sense that when we are kind of inventing things or looking at things afresh, or in a space where other people's ideas trigger thoughts and ideas which may have not existed in our minds before, that's really a pivotal moment, and I think it's an essential part of any learning process is when you're able to see something and imagine new possibilities for it. And I think that was a really key driver for us in terms of why we set up this school, realizing that there was great potential in the learning process if it was focused around kind of this creative process. And I think for myself personally, being and coming from a world of design and architecture, that was a really essential ingredient of our learning process in the studio model, was around how do you how are you involved in a really open-ended process and in an open-ended design challenge.
So we get a lot of people here kind of thinking that this is Nuvu is providing a clear example of what design thinking is. But it happened that this word now is kind of framed in a very, very special way, especially since 2007 and 8, when IDEO basically kind of framed the whole discussion around design thinking, and that is also becoming a big thing in terms of middle school or high schools. They have now a lot of courses that are called design thinking, and they try to do some design related activities. So this is all kind of pretty amazing that this is happening. What happened on the other hand is that they really kind of reduced the creative process into what we call here a recipe that is sometimes not very effective. So a lot of people go to design thinking workshops for a few days, and they come out of it with a toolkit that basically prescribes how you can solve a problem, and they take this and they try to apply it to their own kind of classrooms and their environments, and it's not as effective.
The question of scaling is a really important one, because we really believe in the work that we're doing here in the model, and we want to reach more students. But there is something about we're in a brick and mortar space, and we really believe in the value of this kind of face-to-face interaction that's happening between coaches and between students. And when you talk about scaling this type of model, it is very resource intensive. To maintain those nice ratios of students to coaches, you need to have as many coaches involved and smaller group sizes and team sizes. So there are some limitations when thinking about how this model can scale. And so the last 2 years, we've been building out what we call our Nuvu X model, which has been specifically focused on working with schools and working with their teachers to train the teachers over a period of time of what does this creative learning look like, what is the design studio model about, and how can they start to change that mindset of being a teacher to what is it like to be kind of more of a designer in the classroom, and more of a facilitator and a coach rather than a teacher.
To bring the design mindset into schools, there has to be a rethinking of what the schedule is. A lot of what's happening now, we see it in a lot of schools that we visit, especially the schools that are building maker spaces now, is that you go to these maker spaces and they are relatively empty. And where are the students? Is like, the students are in their regular classes and there is no time basically in the schedule to allow the students to use these spaces. And they are amazing spaces with amazing amount of equipment. So usually when we go to a school and we want to work with them, a big part or the first thing that we really ask is a time in the schedule that would allow us to do anything, which means they have to place something else in the schedule that would allow us to experiment and do different things. Everything else is actually pretty trivial. So we don't ask about tools, we don't ask about spaces, we don't ask about anything. We just want a time in the schedule that would allow us to do things in a different way.
So that's sort of how we imagine kind of scaling this is really, again, looking at ways of working more with schools rather than looking at ways that we can just kind of replicate this model elsewhere. Although I think that would be really exciting, and that has always been sort of a pie in the sky ideas, imagining 50 new views around the world that sort of are these sort of innovations hubs and connected. But I think we could want to bring that into the belly of the school system and see how we can actually create change from the inside.